Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. At sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin at
Exposed. The Covert Nadal Academy Masterplan behind Alex Eala's unstoppable rise. Just 5 minutes ago, the tennis world was turned completely upside down, and most people have absolutely no idea it even happened yet. They thought this would stay hidden forever, buried deep behind the high limestone walls of a Mediterranean fortress, locked away in the sun-baked hills of Mallorca, Spain, where champions are forged in secret and legends are manufactured behind closed doors. But a single, unguarded interview may have just blown the lid off absolutely everything, and the shockwaves are still reverberating across every major tennis capital on the planet right now. Alexandra Eala's older brother, Miko, has finally broken his silence, dropping explosive, jaw-dropping hints about covert training sessions, heavily guarded tactical strategies, and the direct, deeply personal involvement of some of the most legendary, mythological names in the entire history of tennis. We are talking about revelations so significant, so genuinely seismic, that top WTA coaches around the globe are reportedly tossing and turning tonight, unable to sleep, frantically pulling up match footage, and desperately trying to decode a formula that may have been hiding in plain sight for years. If even a fraction of what Miko just suggested proves to be accurate, this could be the single most important turning point in understanding the astonishing, almost supernatural rise of Alexandra Eala to the very summit of women's professional tennis. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only place on the internet where we serve you the absolute hottest, most raw and unvarnished truths from inside the ropes of the sport we all love. If you are new here, you picked the perfect moment to arrive, because what we are about to unpack today is genuinely unlike anything we have covered before. Grab your snack, settle deep into your couch, turn the volume all the way up, and get ready, because the tennis establishment is trembling right now, and we are about to tell you exactly why, in full, glorious, explosive detail. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of what is happening in this moment, we absolutely have to start by looking at the man who just lit the match and watched everything catch fire. Miko Eala is not simply an older brother clapping politely from the player's box, content to ride the coattails of his famous sibling's success. He is a former Division I college tennis standout who wore the blue and white of the Penn State Nittany Lions with genuine distinction. But far more importantly for our story today, Miko was right there in the trenches alongside Alex at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, Mallorca, during those formative, foundational years. He knows the early morning drills that started before the Spanish sun had fully risen. He knows the smell of the red clay dust hanging in the Mediterranean air after another punishing baseline session. He knows the hushed, intense conversations that happened in the corridors of that academy, far away from the flashing cameras and the breathless Instagram posts that painted only the most glamorous version of that life. For years, the entire Eala camp has been almost militantly tight-lipped. They smile warmly at press conferences, they give polished, gracious post-match interviews, they humbly thank their fans and their sponsors, and they never, ever give away the kitchen secrets. But beneath that perfectly media-trained, impeccably gracious public surface, something else entirely was being built. An absolute monster of a competitor was being engineered with quiet, deliberate, almost obsessive precision, and the world simply was not paying close enough attention until now. When Miko recently hinted at the existence of heavily protected, completely closed-door sparring sessions specifically designed to systematically dismantle the current top 10 players on the WTA Tour, the tennis world collectively held its breath. He didn't just vaguely imply that Alex was out there hitting a lot of cross-court forehands and working on her second serve percentage. He painted a vivid, almost cinematic picture of a completely bespoke, fiercely guarded tennis curriculum, one tailored with surgical precision to identify, target, and ruthlessly exploit the specific, documented weaknesses of the very best players in the world. It was not the kind of thing a brother says accidentally. It was the kind of thing a brother says when he has watched his sister work so hard, for so long, in such complete anonymity, that he simply cannot contain his pride any longer. And the entire tennis community is still trying to fully process what it means. Let us now rewind the tape and connect the dots. Because the breadcrumbs have honestly been sitting right in front of us this entire time, and we should all feel a little embarrassed for not seeing them sooner. Everyone knows the basic outline of the story. Alex Eala made the bold, life-altering decision to move to Mallorca, Spain, when she was barely 13 years old, leaving the comfort and familiarity of Manila behind to chase something bigger, something extraordinary. To the casual, uninformed observer, it looked like just another talented kid from a privileged family attending a very expensive, very fancy sports school in a beautiful part of the world. But the Rafa Nadal Academy is not a school in any conventional sense of the word. It is, without any exaggeration, a high-performance human laboratory, a facility where the most promising young tennis minds on earth are systematically subjected to an environment of relentless, world-class intensity designed to compress decades of development into a matter of years. And the figures running this operation are not just coaches. They are architects of greatness on a scale that the tennis world has rarely seen before. Rafael Nadal himself, the owner of 22 Grand Slam titles, arguably the greatest clay court competitor in the history of sport, built this academy with his own name and a very specific, very defined philosophy. But the man who truly shaped that philosophy, the man who whittled the raw, fiery talent of young Rafa into the relentless, mentally indestructible machine that terrorized the tour for 2 decades, is his uncle, Tony Nadal. Tony is one of the most respected, most feared, and most intellectually formidable coaching minds that tennis has ever produced. He is not a warm, fuzzy mentor who dispenses inspirational quotes. He is a tactician, a psychologist, and a relentless truth-teller who demands not just physical excellence, but complete mental and strategic mastery from his players. The fact that this man has been connected to Alex Eala's development is not a small footnote. It is the entire story. And suddenly, with Miko's recent bombshells ringing in our ears, that absolutely viral, unforgettable moment from the 2025 Miami Open makes so much more complete and devastating sense. Cast your mind back to that warm, electric Florida night. A 19-year-old Alexandra Eala, a girl who had spent years training in near-total obscurity on the sun-soaked clay of Mallorca, walked out onto the Hard Rock Stadium court and proceeded to not just defeat, but utterly, comprehensively, almost cruelly confuse the great IGA Swiatek, the reigning world number 2, with a masterclass that finished 6-2, 7-5. It was the kind of performance that stops you mid-bite of whatever you are eating and forces you to simply stare at the screen in silent disbelief. But here is what the casual viewer may have missed. When the cameras panned up to the player's box to capture the celebration, sitting right there, composed and watchful, and completely unsurprised by what was unfolding below, was Tony Nadal himself. The legendary architect of 14 French Open titles does not cross the Atlantic Ocean and fly to Miami, Florida for a casual sightseeing trip. He was there with a purpose. He was there to watch his investment, his project, his secret weapon, execute a flawlessly pre-programmed tactical strike against one of the best players on the planet. And it worked to perfection. Every single hint that Miko dropped about covert training, about closed-door strategy sessions, about a playbook nobody outside that Mallorcan fortress has ever seen, maps perfectly onto how Alex played that night against Swiatek. The world number 2 looked completely, utterly disoriented. She looked like a woman trying to fight a ghost, unable to read the spin, unable to anticipate the depth, unable to cope with the relentless, suffocating, beautifully engineered pressure that was raining down on her from the other side of the net. Swiatek had studied the available footage. She had done her homework. But the homework she had done was on an old version of Alex Eala, because the version that showed up in Miami had clearly been upgraded with software that nobody else had access to. The plot does not stop there, though. In fact, it thickens considerably, and it gets so much richer and more dramatic the deeper you dig. Fast forward from that magical Miami night to February of 2026, just days ago. The setting is the Dubai Tennis Championships, one of the most prestigious and competitive WTA 1000 events on the entire calendar. The top players in the world converge on the United Arab Emirates every year for a tournament that has broken hearts and launched careers in equal measure. Alex Eala walked into that desert heat as a ranked outsider, a dangerous one, but an outsider nonetheless. She walked out having done it again, in even more emphatic fashion than anyone dared predict. In her standout performance of the tournament, she faced world number 8 Jasmine Paolini, the seasoned, experienced, Grand Slam finalist Italian who has been one of the most consistent performers on tour for years. Paolini had no answers. None. Eala's heavy, left-handed baseline bombardment was simply too much, too varied, and too precisely targeted for the veteran to handle. Eala took the first set with a breathtaking, almost disrespectful 6-1 scoreline. When the tension built to a knife edge in the second set, and Eala found herself facing 2 set points against her, she did not blink. She did not show a single flicker of doubt. She fought off both set points with the cold, clinical composure of a player who has been specifically trained for moments of maximum pressure. And she closed out the tiebreak with the kind of calm authority that made even the most jaded tennis observers pause and take note. That victory did not merely confirm what Miami had suggested. It elevated the conversation to an entirely different level. Alex Eala's ranking jumped to a staggering career high of world number 31, making her officially, undeniably, indisputably the highest-ranked Filipino tennis player in the entire history of the sport. But the record that truly sent shockwaves through the tennis analytics community was this one. At just 20 years and 168 days of age, Alexandra Eala surpassed none other than Naomi Osaka to become the youngest Asian player in the history of the sport to record victories over top 10 opponents at multiple WTA 1000 events. Read that sentence again slowly. She is not just breaking the records of ordinary players. She is reaching back into the trophy cabinet of one of the most celebrated, most globally iconic tennis champions of the modern era and saying, politely but firmly, that she can do it younger, faster, and she is just getting started. Now let us talk about what is truly underneath the hood of this machine, because this is where Miko's revelation becomes genuinely frightening for anyone currently holding a top 10 ranking. The whispers from inside the academy circuit suggest that the preparation Alex has undergone goes far beyond anything the conventional tennis coaching world typically employs. There are credible reports, the kind that circulate quietly among agents and coaches and performance staff at the highest level, that the Nadal Academy has been utilizing cutting-edge biomechanical analysis software that breaks down the specific stroke patterns of every major opponent Alex is likely to face on tour. Not just their general tendencies, their specific tendencies under specific conditions, their shot selection when they are a point down at 4-5 in the second set, their return positioning when they are receiving on a wide-body serve, their net approach decisions after a short ball on their backhand side. The level of granularity allegedly being applied to Alex's match preparation is the kind of thing you read about in white papers from sports science journals, not the kind of thing you hear about from a 20-year-old's player box. And then there are the practice partner protocols that insiders have hinted at in increasingly specific terms. The suggestion is that hitting partners at the academy are specifically recruited and specifically instructed not just to feed balls, not just to rally and improve general consistency, but to precisely mimic the exact physical and tactical signatures of specific WTA opponents. The thunderous, high-bouncing, heavily spun forehands of Aryna Sabalenka. The deceptive, heavy slice backhand that makes Coco Gauff such a unique and uncomfortable opponent. The flat, laser-like, unpredictable ball striking of Elena Rybakina. The idea is that by the time Alex Eala walks on the court against any of these players in a real match, it is not the first time she has faced them. She has faced a simulated version of them hundreds of times, in controlled conditions, with specific tactical solutions already drilled into her muscle memory, waiting to be deployed when the moment calls for it. This is exactly why her comeback against Yelena Ostapenko in the Miami Open stands as such a definitive piece of evidence for the covert playbook theory. When Alex found herself down 0-4 in the first set against the Latvian former Grand Slam champion, a player whose unpredictable, hyper-aggressive, flat-hitting style has humbled countless top players over the years, she did something that virtually no teenager under that kind of pressure would do. She did not panic. She did not start making desperate tactical adjustments on the fly, throwing things at the wall and hoping something stuck. Instead, with an eerie, almost supernatural calm, she recalibrated. Imperceptibly to the casual viewer, she shifted her return position by a matter of inches. She altered her rally ball depth by just a fraction. She began directing her patterns to a specific corridor of the court that Ostapenko's footwork simply was not equipped to handle efficiently. And then, point by point, game by game, she dismantled the Latvian's entire game plan with the quiet, methodical efficiency of a surgeon. Ostapenko was so bewildered by the end that she was blasting balls several feet beyond the baseline in a fury of confusion. Alex won 7-6, 7-5. It looked like a comeback fueled by heart and adrenaline. It was actually a chess player revealing the endgame she had been steering toward from the very first point. And if Miko's hints are accurate, the Nadal coaching staff had seen Ostapenko's patterns months earlier and had already written the antidote. We also cannot begin to discuss Alex Eala's rise without spending a significant amount of time on the extraordinary human foundation she is built upon. Because this is not simply a story about coaching and tactics. This is a story about bloodlines and destiny. The athletic genetics running through the Eala family are, to put it plainly, ridiculous. Their mother, Riza Manyego Eala, was not merely a corporate titan who eventually became one of the most powerful women in Philippine business through her distinguished career with Globe Telecom. Before all of that, she was a nationally celebrated competitive swimmer who brought home a bronze medal in the 100-meter backstroke at the 1985 Southeast Asian Games, competing for the Philippines on the regional stage with distinction and pride. The discipline, the pain tolerance, the complete inability to accept mediocrity, the understanding of what genuine peak athletic performance demands of a human body and mind, those are not things Riza left at the pool. Those are things she carried into her home, into her parenting, and ultimately into the competitive makeup of her extraordinary children. Their uncle, Nali Eala, brings a completely different but equally critical dimension to the family's sporting heritage. Having served at the highest levels of Philippine sports administration, including roles with the Philippine Sports Commission and the Philippine Basketball Association, Nali understands intimately how elite athletic systems work at the institutional level. He understands funding, he understands politics, he understands the machinery of international sports federations, and he understands how to position a national sporting hero for maximum global impact. The Eala family, in other words, is not operating from a position of wide-eyed innocence about how the sports world works. They are an incredibly sophisticated, incredibly well-connected, incredibly strategically minded unit that has been quietly, methodically playing this game at the highest possible level for years. When Miko let the curtain slip, even slightly, it did not feel like a naive mistake made in an unguarded moment. It felt like a family that has quietly decided it is time for the world to start paying attention, because the show is about to begin in earnest. Consider for a moment the position that this revelation now puts the rest of the WTA Tour in, and appreciate just how uncomfortable that position truly is. Imagine being the coaching team of a top 5 player right now. You have spent the last calendar year meticulously building a scouting profile on Alexandra Eala based on the publicly available match footage. You have tried to reverse engineer her serve mechanics, which seem to gain significant additional RPM and placement variety almost overnight without any obvious explanation. You have studied her back, which produces a unique, heavy, kicking ball that pushes opponents back and above the contact zone they are comfortable with. You have analyzed her court movement, which shows an almost uncanny ability to anticipate angles before her opponents have even committed to them. You thought you were starting to figure her out. And then Miko Eala sits down in front of a microphone and casually, almost offhandedly, suggests that there is an entire vault of strategies, an entire secondary layer of tactical sophistication, that his sister has not yet needed to deploy in a match situation, that she has been, in essence, holding back. The psychological damage that statement alone inflicts on a coaching staff trying to prepare against her is genuinely incalculable. The fortress of the Rafa Nadal Academy is, in this sense, one of the most brilliant strategic assets the Eala camp possesses. Rafael Nadal built that facility with a very clear vision, a controlled environment where elite development could happen away from the noise and the pressure and the prying eyes of the outside world. The media simply does not get access. The footage does not leak. The tactical conversations that happen on those practice courts stay on those practice courts. Unless you have an all-access pass signed by Nadal himself, you are working with incomplete information, And incomplete information in the preparation business is as good as no information at all when the player across the net from you has a complete file on everything you are likely to throw at her.